Good evening and welcome to the Diversity Alumni Training Session. We put this in place this year because we wanted to offer more support to our alums who are calling our diversity students. Tonight we're going to cover a wide range of topics and hopefully they're interesting and educational to everybody. So we'll go over the early admit statistics and some other enrollment information. We'll cover the outreach process that we would like you to follow as you're making the calls, and then also possible topics of discussion that you'll encounter when talking to students. Our first speaker tonight is Don Bishop, who's the Associate Vice President of Undergraduate Enrollment, and he'll be covering the early action statistics.
Great, thank you. Well, first of all, welcome, and we very much appreciate the time that not only you're spending tonight, but even more importantly over the next couple months helping us talk to these wonderful kids who've applied. We've already admitted a good cohort in the early action. I'll make comment on that in a minute. And then, of course, our regular action kids will know by the end of March. And what's really challenging there is all the colleges have only a month between the time our kids get their admit letters and when they have to make the decision on May 1st. And I know the financial aid people even have a tighter time frame than admissions. But everything that you do to personalize the process, to connect these kids to Notre Dame, and everything I've learned in my 36 years doing this is the more of a personal connection we create, they are influenced by that in a very positive way. So you guys are doing a great job for us, and I think we're providing you with every year a better and bigger group of kids to talk to, but the constant is the quality of conversation that you can have with them from their home area. And then if ever there's anything that we should follow up on, letting us know what we can do in financial aid or admissions or any other parts of the university. So we very much appreciate our partnership with you. But why don't we go ahead, and I'd like to give you some profile. We're very proud to show you some of the early returns. So with our early action applications, we hit another record. We had over 6,300 applications, and that was an 8% increase over last year. We attracted over 1,240 different high schools. So Notre Dame has continued to expand its reach to all sorts of different types of schools, and in fact 30 countries were represented. We did admit 1,984 early action, and as you know, they have till May 1st to make their decision. Several hundred have already sent in a deposit. Last year, I think about 56% of our early action kids enrolled. We also, and you may get questions in your home area, not only from admitted students, but some may have reached out who have been deferred. We have 930 students that we deferred. Last year, we admitted about 140, 150 of the deferred students. So it is always difficult in that the deferred students, many of them have high desire for Notre Dame. Some of them will get in. I can't say that more will get in this year. And in fact, in a minute, I'll go through the regular action pool. I think it will be just as challenging. But the good news is, about 150 of these kids, probably out of the 930, will collect that offer admission by the end of March, and they'll be very excited. And of course, we'll be very excited to talk them in. And they may be a little bit of a harder sell because we backed them off a little bit with the defer. And so I think these kids may even require a little bit more attention because, quite frankly, we're saying we love you now before we thought we might love you. So it is a little bit different exchange with them, but our yield rate of that group is about 80%. So these kids really do want to come, and they're wonderful to reward. Other than that, on this slide, I would just tell you that the profile of the admitted students in early action, the median kid, the average kid, was probably in the top 1% of the nation in high school class performance or testing or both, or we felt from their leadership everything else, there was something about them that was just absolutely stunning and elite. And those are the ones that got in early action. The defers as a group, probably half of them were in the top 1% of the nation in some form or another, either the EQ, the activities, service and leadership, or the academics, more the test scores, class performance side. But just a remarkable group that you'll get to talk to right away. And then as you transition to the regular action, if you go ahead and switch the slide. So we now pretty much have our finish for regular action. We're going to end up probably just shy of 18,000 applications. We're going to admit about 3,600 students to enroll about 1,985 to 2,000 freshmen. This is a 1% application increase over last year. Most of the colleges have indicated they're down by about 2 to 10% in applications. And so our increase, while modest relative to other schools, we're gaining ground yet again. More importantly than the number of apps is the quality of the applicants. We're at a 14% increase in applicants that last year and in previous years gained admission. So it really will feel for the applicant pool like we are at least 14% more selective. And in fact, we over-enrolled the class. Last year we enrolled 2070. This year we'll be enrolling about 1985. So it will feel like about an 18% increase in selectivity. Don't say this for publication or to current students, but about a third of the sophomore class, if they were applying to this freshman class, would not gain admission. And Trey, I won't even tell you what percentage of your senior class, because you would have still been admitted, I promise you that. But some of the classmates you don't like, those are the ones we wouldn't be admitting. But Notre Dame continues to rise in its effort to really engage lots of different types of kids in a conversation about Notre Dame. And every year, that conversation is kind of reaching the hearts of our kids as well as the minds more and more. I'm also pleased to tell you that in the last 5 years, we're up 42% in applications for U.S. students of color, African American students, Native American, Asian American, Pacific Islanders, and Hispanic kids. So we've really launched a much larger effort and have accomplished a higher result reaction from those cohorts. This year, I mentioned we're up 1% in apps. We're up actually 5% in U.S. students of color. Other than that, I would just tell you that our academic profile of our admitted freshman class, and that's by their class performance in high school, the courses they took, as well as their national testing, we're probably among the top 10 or 15 national research selective universities in the country now. And that's, I think, something that you can be very proud of and assure these students that not only were they admitted to Notre Dame, but they're probably going to get into some of those other colleges as well, but Notre Dame belongs in those ranks. And we're proud of that. I also would note that we ranked 8th last year in the percentage of admits who actually enrolled. So among all of the top colleges, Notre Dame ranked 8th as a first choice college for the kids that were admitted. And I think that speaks to some of the recruitment that you do, that we do, the financial aid. We are really consolidating our gains in the applicant pool by not only admitting more students of diversity, but also enrolling them. If we could switch to the next slide.
Sure, and there's just a quick question in here.
Sure.
Lionel Phillips was wondering, is the being deferred the same as the wait list?
Right. Good question. No. Deferred means that we want to read your application again before we make a final decision. With the wait list, when a student's placed on and by the way, that decision will be made in March. And you'll either get a yes, no, or possibly a wait list. Now, the wait list decisions that our kids get in March, late March, early April, tells them we've already offered spots to a number of students that we think will probably fill the class. But if we still have openings, and we hope traditionally to have some openings, we will look at you again if you're interested. And some of you may have the option after May 1st, probably before May 15th, somewhere in that 2-week period, we'll be able to tell you whether we have additional openings or not. So the defer is not a final decision, whereas a wait list is kind of a decision that you're not in the immediate class, but if spots are open. Last year, we were unable to take anybody off the wait list. The year before that, we were able to enroll 86 students off the wait list. The year before that, we really didn't have any positions in the wait list, but we brought in 6 more architects off the wait list because architecture was a little undersubscribed 3 years ago.
Okay, thanks.
So, and then I think my last slide that I wanted to go over is that our growth, I alluded to our growth in enrollment for U.S. students of color. We're up about 19% over just several years ago. Last year, we were up 8% over just the 3-year previous average. So we've got some nice movement. And to give you the exact numbers, out of 2,070 freshmen for this fall of 2013, 201 of our kids were Hispanic background, 161 Asian Pacific Islander, 136 African American, 30 Native American. By the way, the 136 African American was not only an all-time record. We had set the record the year before with a 111, and that was one higher than our previous record of 1989, where we had 110 of our kids. So the 136 was a big gain over a historic kind of record number the year before. Notre Dame has really improved, I think, its personalization and its connection with several of our cohort groups. And I really think that the African American group is going to have another big year again this year, and we're very proud of that. Hispanic group is also up significantly this year. Asian Americans are solid this year. The Native American, you want to be a little careful with. Out of those 30, if kids can claim Native American connection, we do look at how connected they are to their culture. But technically, by the federal government, we are required to, if they check the box and they have a tribal affiliation, whether they're 1/8 or 1/16, they're counted in that 30. Some of those 30 are very connected to their culture, some not as much. That is somewhat true also with Hispanic, but largely we find that probably the vast majority of the other cohorts are highly tied to their cultures. With Native American, out of the 30, I would suggest that maybe 2/3 or more might not be, if you are a Native American who's really grounded in your culture and you're talking to these kids, not sure how focused they are on that part of their background. So we want to keep looking at not just 30 Native American, but getting the kids from very strong cultural backgrounds from there. And then other than that, I would just note that our task of enrolling these kids is the toughest cohort. 33% of the students of color last year that did not enroll at Notre Dame went to the other top 10 universities. Another 31% went to probably our more specific peer group. They're in the top 11 to 20. And again, I think that we're right on the line between top 10 and top 15. And then 19% went to the next 15, and 11 went to their state flagship school, many on full rides, and only 7% made other choices. So when you're talking to our kids that have been admitted, you will find that they have a lot of good choices. And so we're going to have to compete with that, but we're prepared to do that. And even with that, our yield rate of this cohort was very close to 50%. So they were willing to turn down kind of that same list of schools to come to Notre Dame that the group that turned us down went to.
Okay, we have time just for a couple quick questions here. Somebody's asking, when you reference a cohort, exactly what are you referencing?
Okay, well, cohort, I use that term quite a bit. I'm an economist, and generally that is a defined group. So a cohort could be U.S. students of color, or if we're breaking it down, it could be African American cohort. U.S. students of color cohort is a larger, broader cohort. First generation could be a cohort of students. It just is a group of kids clustered around a certain identity.
Okay. And then just one more question for this section. Does Notre Dame have a multi-ethnic or biracial category?
We do, and actually many of the kids, I won't say the majority, but a significant number of the kids that we put here, they may be 2 or 3 different ethnic codes. Some of that may be white, others could be, we've seen all the combinations. So you could have a Hispanic, Native American, Asian, and white student. And they're not required necessarily to say which one is the principal one, so they can put multiple codes. We then, the government does ask us to assign one race category, and there are federal guidelines for how to spread those out and define them. And then also the universities can use their own definitions as well. But for the federal reports, the instruction is that any student who is Hispanic is counted as Hispanic, regardless of any other cultural background identified. And then after that, I believe it is African American, Native American, Asian, white. Any unknown student is kind of thrown in with the white population as white/unknown. Research tends to show that the majority are ultimately white students that just didn't want to put down a race. Although there are some other race groups that in the research might choose not to identify. But we just throw that whole group in. We don't try to speculate what they are. We just leave them out and put them with the white population.
Okay.
So.
Great. Well, thank you, Don.
Okay.
So next, I'm going to go ahead and cover just the process that we're going to be going through this year for the emailing and calling campaign. So today is the alumni training, so there's many of you on this broadcast live and many that will be watching the recording of it. On February 6th, an email will be sent out from the chairs of the Diversity Council boards, and that email will be announcing that alums will be contacting students within the next few weeks, and just to give the expectation that they will be receiving a phone call or an email. And then we're hoping February 10th through 28th is the alumni outreach campaign. So we're giving a couple weeks for you to be able to do the outreach to all of the students. We have just a step-by-step process that we're looking for. So step 1 is complete the training, which many of you will be doing tonight. And then we'll be giving the list of all of the students to the student recruitment chairs on the diversity boards. The diversity student recruitment chairs will divide up the list of students amongst alums, and then we will provide you a list of students to call. We'll provide a script for an email to introduce yourself and just reach out to the student and ask them if there's the best time to call them during the week. And then you'll call students. What we're asking is that you call the student, and if you don't get a hold of them, leave a message and tell them the time you'll be calling them back. And then after that, you can phone call them again, and if you don't get a hold of them the second time, drop them an email or a note in postal mail. And then we ask you to log any communication or questions onto a Google Doc, which will provide the link to you. So this is just adding a little bit of structure. Some of the boards have implemented it before, and we just wanted to have it standardized across all of the Diversity Council boards. Some basic training guidelines. Please only provide data or statistics if you know they're correct. In the Google Doc, there'll be a comment section or questions. If the student has a question you can't answer, put it in there and we'll put them in touch with their admission counselor. Please don't make negative comments about other schools. So if the topic of other schools they're looking at comes up, just say they're all good school choices and that you hope that they do attend Notre Dame. Do not discuss specific test scores, GPA, financial aid situations. We'll have Mary Nucciaroni, our Director of Financial Aid, give you an overview of some financial aid questions that may come up, but don't get into specifics about the students' individual needs. And then also use the sample email and call scripts that we'll be providing. You can feel free to tailor them to make them more personal, but we ask that you keep the basic structure for that. And we will provide links to all of these documents on a website as well. So you'll be receiving that when you receive your list of students. The next section of the training, we'll be going over the possible topics of discussion that you might be running into when you're contacting the students. So we'll cover student life at Notre Dame, a financial aid overview, sharing your alumni perspective, any deadline reminders that may come up, and contact information. And again, for this contact information, if you don't know the answer, we'll tell you who to contact. Our next speaker I'd like to introduce is Trey Haskins. He's a senior. He's a business major and an FTT major in television production, and he's going to give you an update on what this current student life of a Notre Dame student is like. So Trey, do you want to start off and just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So yeah, like she said, my name is Trey Haskins. I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana. I came to Notre Dame. This was actually one of 11 schools I applied to, so I was really excited when I got in, and have been happy ever since. As far as student life, actually on campus, I'm a business and television double major, so information technology management and television production are my two majors. And so I'm really hoping to go out to LA and become a producer one day. It's kind of my long-term goal. As far as student life goes, typically most students will have class Monday through Friday. Most students have about 2 or 3 classes max on any given day. As a senior right now, I only have classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but most other students have them every day. Classes are an hour 15 if you have it 2 days a week, but typically all classes are about, I think, 150 or so minutes every week, so that's kind of just typical class times. You start out with requirements your freshman year and first year studies, and then sophomore year you declare your official major with whatever college you choose, and then you start taking your specific classes from that point on. What else can I anything else you want to know about?
What about work outside of class? How much are you involved in study groups or working on group projects?
So as a business major, most of our stuff is group projects, so I do lots and lots of group work. I know for engineers, they also do group work and do a lot of labs and things like that. Same with chemistry and biology students as well. Typically, I'm probably working on group projects for maybe 2 or 3 hours out of the week outside of class time. I'm sure the engineers and the chemistry and biology majors are doing a lot more than that because they just have more technical course loads that requires that.
Okay. What about student activities you're involved in?
I have several jobs and stay pretty involved in campus. I work at the library. I also work I used to do the Jumbotrons at the Compton Ice Arena and the Joyce Center, and so we used to run the video boards for that. I've also done student activities office, so I'm an intern for them, so we do programming, things like that. Currently, right now, I'm actually stage managing a play at the Barlow Performing Arts Center, so that takes a lot of my time. And then I've done a few other small jobs around campus as well. I'm a tour guide as well, so I do that.
Keep pretty busy.
Yeah.
Well, I know that you're a 4-year resident of Morrissey Hall.
Uh-huh.
And can you just talk a little bit about
Dorm life
and your choice to stay on campus for all 4 years?
So every student is coming into school and still is randomly selected for whatever dorm they apply to. So that still remains the same. And then you're put with the random roommate as well, so we don't fill out any roommate information sheets or anything like that. So that's pretty just how it works. My freshman year I had an awesome roommate, so we got along really well. So that was really good. I chose not to room with him, however, next year just because I found another friend I wanted to room with. But I've been in Morrissey for the last 4 years. It's been awesome. Dorm life is really cool. There's inter-hall sports, so we have football, basketball, hockey, racquetball, the whole gamut, which is really cool. And then as far as other dorm activities, we have like dorm spirit events. So because we don't have sororities or fraternities, our dorms kind of function like that. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of dorm spirit. Students really get to learn and meet a lot of new people really quick just because of the fact that you're randomly assigned. So I think my freshman year I had a guy from Texas, from California, from Florida, from New York. All these guys are just right next to me. So it's really cool learning just all the different things from their different parts of the country. Being from Indianapolis, it's kind of pretty watered down as far as culture goes, so I was glad to see what other people live. Great.
Well, I know that a big part of some students' lives is the dorm masses on Sunday nights, and I'm sure that's still going on, and just definitely other opportunities for students to go on. Do you know off the top of your head from your tour guide training about how many masses go on during the year or during a week?
I have no idea. I know that there's always a mass going on, so you can pretty much go to mass any time of the day. Most dorm masses are at night, around like 9, 10 o'clock at night, which is really convenient because classes are over and you kind of have that downtime. Dorm masses are also cool because most kids can go in their pajamas and just kind of really casual, but still maintain that part of their lifestyle. My roommate, Blake, he goes to the Basilica Mass every once in a while. He's also been to several masses at other dorms, so just kind of getting a different flavor for different priests and things around campus, which is cool. I'm actually not Catholic, but I have been to some masses just, because of spirit and it's just kind of the community aspect of Notre Dame. But in no way have I ever felt like I was forced or anything like that. So I think that's really cool that even though we are a Catholic university, I don't ever feel like you're forced to be Catholic or forced to go to Mass. But it's more than welcome to come. And I always feel welcome and willing to go to Mass with my friends.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, I know you mentioned earlier in our conversations before that you were an officer in the Black Student Association.
Mm-hmm.
So can you talk a little bit about diversity on campus and your
Sure.
experience with that?
I think they need you to sit closer to
Oh,
the
sorry.
sorry.
As far as diversity goes, yeah, so I was an officer of the Black Student Association, so I was a secretary and I'm a treasurer this year. We do a lot of work. We're kind of an umbrella organization for a lot of the cultural clubs on campus. So there's a lot of other cultural clubs that kind of break out under our umbrella. And essentially our job is just to kind of keep all the cultural clubs kind of together and kind of maintain that kind of culture on campus. We do study breaks, we do like game watches, other special events that are kind of unique to each of the clubs. So culture is really a big part of Notre Dame, and I've really found that a lot of students embrace that, and it's really cool to just see that other students of different races will come to our events, and then we'll go to other events of other races as well. So it's really cool seeing how everyone really wants to come together around that. And then, we just do lots of cool events, lots of food. Students like free food, so we always make sure we have free food. And it's just a really good time to just really get to meet not only other people who are like you, but then other people who have different opinions who have different backgrounds than you too. So I think that's really invaluable.
Okay. We do have a question. We'll answer a couple of these here. Somebody asked about study abroad opportunities, and I know that probably a lot of your friends have studied abroad, but you had an international experience as well.
Yeah.
So if you can talk about that.
So I didn't study abroad in the traditional sense. I actually went, because I'm a film major, I went to the Cannes Film Festival in France. So I went over there for 2 weeks and saw a lot of cool movies and walked the red carpet and all that cool stuff. Most of my other friends, though, have been, my roommate Blake, he went to Spain and spent the whole summer there. A couple of my roommates have gone to Haiti, Ghana, just kind of doing some service work there. I've friends went to London and Australia and things like that. Most majors will offer study abroad. It's kind of harder for engineers just because they have such a strict schedule, but they do have specific study abroad programs even for the engineers as well. And so it's more than encouraged for students to go study abroad, and so that's another way that students learn outside the classroom.
And just to add to that, one of the things I would say is there's more study abroad opportunities now in summer because some of the majors have such limitations of needing to align their classes with a particular major and on semesters. So I would say know that there are a lot of study abroad opportunities that are specifically for summer to address those kinds of things rather than just during academic year periods.
Yeah.
Okay. We have a couple more of the fun questions here. So somebody said when they went to Notre Dame, the dorms did SYR dances. And do those still occur?
Yes, they still happen. They're alive and well. I've been to, I think, 2 or 3 SYRs. I kind of stopped going to them as I got older just because I got older. But no, they're still alive and well. My roommate, he just went on an SYR, I think, a couple weeks ago. Most dorms will have both a fall and a spring SYR, so you'll have 2 chances to go every year. And it's just kind of a fun time. You kick back, relax, and go hang out with your friends and dance and eat some free food again.
That's great. There was another one about freshman orientation, and just wondering if you can remember back 4 years, just talk a little bit about that. People are wondering if it's changed since their experience, but I know in the 90s there was a lot of just social opportunities between different residence halls to get to know each other. And
yeah, so our freshman orientation, we came in, we did a lot of dorm stuff. Like I said, since we don't have fraternities or sororities, our dorm kind of functions as that. So we had like this initiation ceremony, and they like walked us around the lakes or whatever. And so just like simple stuff like that is kind of fun and kind of cool. I thought it was cool, at least when I came. And then I think that night we spent most of the time going around singing to different dorms. We had a bonfire, just kind of hang out with other friends. And then I guess we had the big dance, so it was like a SYR, but like on mega scale because it was all the freshmen. And so we went to Step-In Center and, kind of found dates or whatever, and then went and danced and had a good night. And that was kind of like, I think it was like 2 or 3 days. that the entire orientation was.
Yeah, it sounds familiar.
Yeah.
It's probably
Okay,
what
cool.
a lot of people were talking about. It's interesting. Somebody here, Jesse Dang, who I believe graduated in 2001, says that your overview sounds a lot like the Notre Dame that he knows and loves, and that he and I were roughly students around the same time, so that's good. Jesse considers me a little bit younger, so than I actually am. But he's wondering, like, just to put it in context, like in my opinion on how much it's changed. And it's funny hearing your experience of Notre Dame. It sounds a lot like my experience going through, and like Jesse's point. Jesse, I think that you mentioned facilities. There obviously has been an upgrade in facilities. I think as the student body has been increasing as far as the admission statistics, from what I hear, it just sounds like it's a lot more. Well, it sounds like it could be a lot more studious. Students are still making the time to be well-rounded Notre Dame students. That they're still participating in social activities, still embracing the study abroad and service opportunities. What I think is comforting that the more it changes from a physical standpoint, the more it's staying the same as well. So let's see, a couple more questions here. Do they still have the Center for Social Concerns?
Yes, they do.
And summer service projects?
I actually went on a trip to New York City my spring break of my freshman year with the CSC. So we studied children in poverty. Some of my friends went to the Appalachian Mountains region and built houses, so we're still doing that. And then, like I said, some students have done service work both here and abroad. So CSC is still strong.
Okay. Another question, and being from Indianapolis, I'm not sure you can offer any advice. Is any advice on explain the tough winter conditions to somebody who is not coming from there?
Man.
We have 3 California transplants that work in our office, and it's been a very, very cold and snowy winter here in South Bend. So
it's rough.
You're still smiling, and I think as you're offering this opinion to students. Just tell them to wait until they come here to buy their winter coat and boots so they can be well prepared.
That's very true. And they can enjoy the snow and sledding and like other winter sports that you don't see everywhere else. So.
Just a couple more questions here before we move on. Do the cultural freshman orientation retreats still exist?
Yes. I actually was committee chair for the Plunge Retreat, which is an African American retreat, I believe is how it's titled. So I just had that. We had that, I think, the second week of school. And then I know that there's an Asian retreat that actually just happened a couple weeks ago that one of my friends went on. And there's also like still class retreats as well. So the retreats are still going.
Okay. Just one more question. What about quarter dogs? No longer a quarter?
I actually think they're back to a quarter. Yeah, so like last year they were like 30 cents or something like that, but they put them back at 25 cents, so they're still quarter dogs.
So the student influence can help
we were outraged, so we got that changed.
For those of you who might not have been around, quarter dogs are the hot dogs for sale and fortune, and when they after midnight when they raised the price last year, a year or two ago, there was an outrage. So. Well, there are some more questions, and what I'll do is talk to you offline and get some of these questions answered because we can best prepare our alums.
That works.
So thank you so much for your time.
No problem.
And next, I'd like to introduce Mary Nucciaroni. She's the Director of Financial Aid at Notre Dame, and she's going to give an overview of some financial aid topics that might come up.
Well, good evening. It's really fun to be able to have the chance to see your names are coming through, those of you who are asking questions, and to see some of you whom I know and say hello to. And for those of you I haven't met yet, I hope I have the opportunity to talk to you in person, as well as thank you for working with these particular students. And as Don said, I think your connection with them helps to make this real, and hopefully the information I give you tonight and the connection, I think that's the other piece, is I'm not just here for you tonight. And as Karen said, there's going to be a means for you to ask questions, but I'd also invite you to reach out to me, email me if you have general questions. And again, what I like to do, particularly like with our admissions staff, is I call them questions from the road. So if I have received a number of the same question, Karen will have Karen put that back out for all of you so you can benefit from the answers. So what I've prepared for you is just general information for you, because looking at the timing of your calls from February 10th through the 28th is when your campaign is going to go on. So as you look at the information here, you are going to be talking to students who may have concerns about paying for Notre Dame, who won't have specific information yet, and we will be in a position where we don't have specific information yet. So I think the biggest thing for you to know is, what is our process? So our priority application date for financial aid is February 15th. This is not a cutoff date. This is a priority. So we do first come, first in our office, first out, and we start with our early action admitted students, and then we continue to roll decisions out. We require 2 financial aid applications. The free application for federal student aid is used for all federal sources of aid, so federal grants, federal loans, and then the CSS financial aid profile, which is an application through the College Board. Those are the 2 forms that we need for students who want to be receive consideration for all sources of assistance administered by our office, with the exception of merit aid, which does not require a financial aid application. So the specific links and information about those forms are available on our website, which I think is at the end of the presentation, that Karen will have it there for you. So the next bullet, IDoc service. So this has become a verb. I have to IDoc my documents. So what IDoc is a means for students to send supporting information like tax returns. And many of our peer institutions use the same service, so that, for example, a student is not sending their tax return to 6 different schools. They send it to one place, and the schools who participate in the service, we read that information via image, and it makes the process more simple for a student. So what will happen is, when the student completes the CSS profile application, the College Board will write to the student on our behalf, and they will ask the student to send their information through the IDoc service to the College Board. There is a place on the CSS profile application to share special circumstances. So we know in this economy, a number of our families have had changes in income. We know many of our applicants have students, maybe they're the second in college or the third in college. Maybe there are students whose younger siblings are going to private elementary or secondary school. So the CSS profile is a lot more robust information, and it gives us a much better picture of a student's financial circumstances than the free application for federal student aid, which is why we use both. So if the family feels that the applications do not collect specific information about their circumstances, then we would invite them to send that information to the financial aid office directly. Remember that we still remain need blind in admission, which means that their financial need is not considered in their admission. And it also means that the admissions office doesn't share information that they provided on their admissions application with our office. So if they think that's going to happen automatically, that is not going to happen. Notre Dame's programs still remain dedicated primarily to need-based financial assistance, which means students who complete these processes and through our review have a gap in what their family can pay and our costs. We're going to put together groups or different types of financial assistance which would meet their need. What might that look like? We do have no loan packages. So again, a lot of the schools, you've heard a lot of public press about this. We've never made an announcement because some of our peers had to say they're not doing that anymore, frankly. We've done that for many years now. So we still have, for our lowest income students, typically families who are making roughly $50,000 and below are probably going to receive some kind of package with little or no loan assistance in that financial aid package. And again, that's going to be based on the family's individual circumstances. But certainly, the university, we spent about $110 million in 13-14 on need-based financial aid. So it's a huge commitment on the part of the university. Our merit scholarship programs are covered on our website. I would refer students to the website for that information. There's not a separate application process. Students are invited to compete for our merit scholarships. To give you an idea, about 3% of the university's financial aid budget is actually committed to scholarships that are non-need scholarships. Who's going to qualify really depends on who's in our admit pool. As Don described to you earlier, this is a very competitive group. So we are probably talking the top 1% of the admitted students are actually going to compete for these scholarships. And again, the criteria for them are on our website. I would refer the students there and not try and guess whether or not they're going to compete for one of these scholarships. Again, they'll receive an invitation to do that. Selection for merit scholarships does not preclude other need-based financial aid. So my advice to all families, regardless of I think I'm going to qualify or I don't think I'm going to qualify, is to complete the application process, because frankly, so many of our families have no idea that they'll qualify for need-based assistance. What we also know is those families who engage in the financial aid application and process for receiving aid are actually coming in greater numbers even if they didn't receive financial aid. So we're not just doing financial aid and giving a package. We're also talking with many families about how do I finance a Notre Dame education? What is a good amount? What is an appropriate amount of loan debt? So those are all kinds of things that our staff in my office are working on. I think another thing I would say to you is don't feel like you need to be an expert about financial aid. That is not what we are asking you to do. Part of what your outreach calls will do is help us to know who are the families or who are the students who might need more of our personal touch. So again, Karen's going to give you that process to get those students in touch with us and that we can do that outreach. So I wouldn't get into their specific circumstances. I think she said that on her opening slide. One of the things, again, our financial aid notifications will start rolling out in mid to late March. So that's a piece for you to know. Club scholarships, those will roll out right after admissions notifications go out. Our financial aid, the club websites, so those of you who might be part of a club or one of the people who works with club scholarship selection, it'll be the same timing. So the club website will come up for financial aid right after the admit decisions, and then we will start. Again, we have clubs doing some of the selecting and some are university select. I think one of the things that I would plead to you is if you are on that decision-making process for a club, recognize that your awards enhance the financial aid offer that we are giving. And so for some students, that may mean why they come to Notre Dame is the contact with the club as well as you as alums and that money that a club can do. And so the earlier we can get club scholarship information out to a student, the better that we will be. I saw a ballpark figure for average debt. What I would say is we're using and again, you can look at a lot of information online. What I would ask you to do is look at federal debt, and so that is in a student's name, and the average student, $23,000, who is borrowing, right? So again, we have many students who don't borrow. We have students who borrow beyond that because they can, and that's the financing mode that some families, but $23,000 would be the average. And again, that was 2 years ago, what we're actually seeing is a decline in debt, and we're probably down into the $16,000, $17,000. We haven't calculated it for this year, but again, for some of our diversity students, significantly less, because what we have tried to do is reduce the need to borrow. And again, not just diversity, but some of our students who are from the lower socioeconomic, and not that those are one and the same. So debt is really on the decline. And Sorry, I'm reading, and I should probably just keep talking instead of trying to read. So again, I would say our website has some of that. When we talk about debt, what I would strongly suggest that you do is connect that to average salaries. So I think I saw the stat today that the average starting salary is something like $55,000. So when we think about debt, I would say, number one, are you willing to buy a car? If you are, what would you spend? And if that number is over 20,000, then why wouldn't you take on debt to invest in you to increase potential earnings? So again, please don't just quote statistics, but put them in context for an 18-year-old student who just thinks of a number and says, oh my gosh. We really need to help them to understand the value of a Notre Dame education and where that's taking. With that statement, we need to make sure that students are taking on unreasonable debt, and that's part of the responsibility of my office. In terms of someone has asked me to talk about the $50,000. Again, that is a general statement for you that families who have truly resources under $50,000 of income and little assets, so they are probably going to end up with a financial aid award that meets their need without any loans in their financial aid package. Someone's just asked about need-based scholarships if a students receive outside. So again, this is, it's a very confusing piece. The big thing you need to remember is Notre Dame meets financial need. We're one of 77 schools in the country who meet need. And so some of our students are applying to schools that don't meet need. And so for them, when they get an outside scholarship, what it's doing is closing that gap of the need that was unmet. What it does at Notre Dame is reduces any self-help work loan. So, and it reduces because we've met the need. Any questions like that, you need to refer those to our office because every student is going to be different because not every student has the exact same self-help, the loan or the work portion of their package. Merit-based scholarships, someone has just asked, and our website was just redone. So off the top of my head, I believe it is you'll find a section called Prospective Students, and there are 3 sections, planning, applying, and funding. And I think they're in planning, but there are 3 pieces, and you'll see it appear right under there, and there's descriptions of each of those. So I apologize, I don't remember because it's only been up for a few weeks. So
we'll provide that link.
Thank you. That would be great, Karen. And the other thing I was going to mention, because none of us talked about it before and you may not be aware of, there's actually a parent website. And again, if you get a parent on the phone or you might recommend it to the student, Barbara Kelly, who is a proud Notre Dame parent who has multiple children who are alumni as well, leads the effort called parents.nd.edu. And again, I think if you're looking for what kind of questions might parents have or what are the activities, this whole effort is to try and connect parents to what their kids are doing. So I don't know about Trey if he tells his parents what go on campus, but he's probably like many of the other students that don't share that information. And so this effort really is to connect parents to what is student life like. So you might find before you do your calls that that website would be of help to you because it will talk about what is going on campus and what might be of interest to you, to parents, whatever. And there's a lot of input from communications and every academic department. We meet several times per semester to share that information with Barbara. Prospective students' ballpark salaries, I don't have that specific information. I would stick to the facts of what is posted. So out on the Career Resource Center, I believe they post average starting salaries. Again, another consumer information linked to the front page of the financial aid website, which is financialaid.nd.edu. You will find in quick facts, I think it is, or it's down about Notre Dame on the left-hand side of our page. There is actually a link to a federal requirement that is consumer information. Some of what you're asking in terms of average salaries, average debt, those statistics are out there. They're public information, and those are available for all colleges. By law, they should be out there for all colleges and universities.
Great. Great.
I think I caught all the questions, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think you did. Thanks, Mary. And oh, do we have another one coming in? So it says, it's really impressive to see our financial aid servicing to students hasn't changed. When she was there 15 plus years ago, received a package that met my needs. Combination of loans, work study, and scholarships, and was the reason I chose ND over the other schools.
Thank
So-
you. We're glad to hear that. And again, I do think, and I think Don commented on this, we take a lot of time to look at what our peers are doing, and we still continue in financial aid to do an individual review. So we don't do anything by just pushing the button. Every student is reviewed, every freshman is reviewed by at least 2 people, a counselor and myself as well. So we remain very close to the students, and again, you serve a very important role of connecting students to our office. So I invite you to do that, and thank you, Sharon, for that comment, and I'll take that back to our team as well.
Great. Well, we'll move on just to and wrap up the training sessions, and then we'll have time for a few more questions and answers with Mary and Trey. The next section is the alumni perspective. So this is the part of the phone call or the email where you get to tell a little bit about yourself. And we really think that sharing this alumni perspective gives students a snapshot into their future to see exactly who they could be and what they could become. So we invite you to share anything about your personal background. If you are, the type of high school you came from, the type of city you came from, the type of, just anything about your personal background and why you chose Notre Dame. A lot of times those stories are very interesting, and it's one of my favorite ones to ask people as they are, when I meet them and said that they went to Notre Dame, especially if they're not from Indiana. And if they're from California or Alaska, why did you come to Notre Dame? It's always a great story. Feel free to share how attending ND has benefited your career, the connections that you made. We were just talking to Trey about he's got a job lined up at Deloitte, and and Don Bishop told him that the Notre Dame network's going to look out for him there. So, kids will be interested to hear stories about that. What your current connection to Notre Dame is, whether you've been involved on one of the diversity boards, whether you just come back for a football game, whether you are, helping host a summer service learning project student. Tell the student what your current connection to Notre Dame is. Talk about your relationships at Notre Dame. The people you talk to on a daily basis, still the roommates you walked in on your freshman year and made friendships for life. I think it's really important to share that community aspect as well. And then if you've been back for a reunion or are part of your club network, I think it's important to let people know that when you step foot off Notre Dame's campus, it's most likely not going to be the last time you leave. Eventually you'll come back for a reunion, or eventually you'll find Notre Dame in your hometown with an alumni club. We talked about this a little bit. These are just some of the important deadline reminders, the financial aid ones that Mary spoke about, and then May 1st is the confirmation deadline. This is when students need to let all colleges know that where they're attending. So we're starting with the early action students now, so they have quite a long time to decide. What we're hoping is when you reach out to them that you start a relationship, and especially if students are discerning where they want to go to school, that they feel comfortable reaching back out to you before this May 1st confirmation deadline. And of course, contact information. Oops. Went a little bit too quick. The Office of Admissions, a link to admission counselors. So if you're talking to a student and you feel comfortable telling them who the admission counselor for their area is, we have a listing of them, and it's listed by their territory assignments, and also the Office of Financial Aid. These are some basic contact information. When we follow up with you after this training, we're going to provide a resource website where there's links to many other campus entities, to the Multicultural Program and Services website. I wrote down a lot of information about people wanting to know more about facilities. I'll add that to the resource page, and just make sure that you have all the resources at hand that you really need to answer the questions and to give you information on what to talk about as well.
Karen, our contact information, so there's one for admissions counselors. The financial aid administrators are all listed on our website as well under
Okay.
financial aid staff, so
Great.
they can find that on the front page of our webpage.
Okay, well now we have about 7 minutes for questions. So we'll go back and ask, it looks like there's a financial aid one, and the question is, does the aid continue for subsequent years?
I think I'm loud enough without the microphone, but we'll keep moving it back and forth. So the intention is yes. We would never want to bait and switch a student. The piece is you need to understand it's a need-based financial aid package. So it can work both ways. So if this is a first student attending college and next year the student has a sibling who's going to go into college, we would anticipate that their financial aid is going to go up. The converse can also happen too, is that maybe when the student is a junior here at Notre Dame, their sibling now graduates, and that could mean that their financial aid goes down. We really try to keep financial aid packages as stable as we possibly can and advise students if we're reading their application and we see that a potential change, either up or down, could happen. We try and alert them to that on the financial aid notification that we send out, trying to be as transparent as we possibly can so families can plan for 4 years.
Great. Well, it looks like we have a student life question again, and it was, have the dining choices expanded? An article in Notre Dame Magazine suggested there are more dining choices now than they were a decade or so. So Trey, do you want to talk a little bit about the campus eateries?
Sure. So yeah, dining, actually there's a lot of options on campus now. So what's really cool is that we have the dining halls. We still have North and South Dining Hall, and most students will have 14 meals a week for that. But we also, most of us will get 380 flex points, which allow us to use any of those other restaurants on campus. So there's all the different restaurants like Taco Bell. I think there's Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, Burger King, Starbucks, and Subway, all in La Fortune. But then around campus, there's different cafes that sell like panini sandwiches and other sandwiches and like all those kinds of lots of really good food. But anyhow, so yeah, you can use all your flex points at those places, which is really convenient.
The other thing that's changing or expanding is the Notre Dame ID card is going to be able to load dollars. I'm not exactly sure how it works, but it will be available to use at different vendors off campus that are not Notre Dame vendors directly. So maybe it's Five Guys or whatever, Chipotle, so that it's growing in that way as well.
Yeah, we did have a request on here, a question about updating on facilities, and I'll make sure on that resource website that we include a listing of relatively new facilities, and especially the area south of campus known as Eddy Street Commons. There's a whole walkable community now where students can walk, and there's sports bars, there's Chipotle, there's a satellite bookstore, there's an AT&T store. So within walking distance of campus, students can get some resources that they need. We have another question. Is there still a pre-first year summer program for accepted minority students, which gets them acclimated to being in South Bend? I believe that's the Balfour program. So I think there's a couple options. So through the admission office, there is the spring visitation program where students can come in the spring of their senior year that are invited. And there's also, I know there was at one time the Balfour program that brings people in.
Balfour.
Oh, you want to talk a little bit to the Balfour
program?
So
so I actually came in, I think it was July, and I stayed for 4 weeks before we started classes. And so I think we took like physics, chemistry, calculus, and one or two other class. I think an English class. And so just kind of get us a full taste of what we could expect those freshman year. We got 2 or 3 credits, I think, toward our course load, and it was just a really good way. I met like most of my friends now that I still live with are all from Balfour, so it was actually really cool and probably the highlight of my freshman year.
Great. We have another question here, more of a procedural, and it's, will we be reaching out to the regular admits later? And the answer is yes. This year we broke the calling scheme up into 2 parts. Rather than give you all the students right after that regular action deadline, or when the regular action decisions are released, we decided to break it up into 2 sections, especially since the students that we're reaching out to now are highly sought after by many schools. So we really want the alumni connection to be made, and any personalization to this admissions outreach effort is possible. And then it's going to be up to the student recruitment chairs on each of the board as to who you're assigned to. So if you have, I know the person here said that they live in San Antonio and expect to talk to Texans most likely. You can always shoot your student recruitment chair on your diversity council board a note and say you'd prefer to talk to students in Texas. But the idea is to try to get all students contacted, whether they're in an international country or if they're right here in your backyard. So let's see if we have any more questions here. We do. So what's the relationship between ND students of the South Bend community or the university and the community? And many years ago, the student body was pretty separated, and students could get a little cabin feverish. Trey, do you want to offer your input on that?
Well, I know that our relationship with South Bend is, I think, gotten better since my freshman year at least. I make a lot more trips off campus to do things downtown and around the city. As far as cabin feverish, a lot of students will still go to Chicago, still go up to Michigan and do things there, or even like surrounding schools. So we still do that a lot. But yeah, I think campus overall does an awesome job with actually the stuff we have here between food and things to do. And then, like I said, student activities offers a lot of different things, and there's so many clubs. So really, there's a lot to do here. But then also, I think it's being complemented by what's going on in the city.
Do you want to talk a little bit about Legends? Because I think
Oh.
that's new for.
Yeah, that's our student nightclub. And so Fridays, Saturday, and actually Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, they have like music and dancing until like 2 or 3 a.m. And then every other night of the week, they have like different programming for each night, and like wing nights or like trivia nights or other themes and stuff throughout the week too. So that's a really cool asset.
Great. Well, I know we have some more questions coming in, but unfortunately we're out of time. So we'll go ahead, and I made note of the questions we didn't get to, and I'll make sure we get those answers and provide them out to everybody who attended tonight. I want to thank you for taking the time. If you have questions, my name is Karen Putt, and I will be providing you my email address, and you all received the email invitation to join this training session. Please reach out to me with anything, and we'll make sure we get your questions answered. Again, thanks for your time, and thanks for all the outreach efforts you'll be doing.